Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a coach. I've got 4 other podcasts: the Meditation, the Crypto, the Learn Polish, and the Awakening, Exposing Fraud and Corruption. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. My guest in California, LA. Is this LA is in California? A high performance coach. Please welcome Sandra Gonzalez.
Thank you so much for having me, Roy. What an honor it is to be here to serve you and your audience. My name is Sandra Gonzalez. You were close. I'm here in San Diego, California, which is a 2-hour drive from Los Angeles. And I am a retired Marine officer turned high performance coach speaker. And I served 20 years of honorable service as a U.S. Marine. Now, I help successful, high caliber female entrepreneurs kick self-doubt and perfectionism to the curb by harnessing sexy confidence, so they can take command of any room they step into and magnetize opportunities for impact and growth. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I love and I'm passionate about what I do. And it's so great to be here, Roy.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, I want to touch on the Marine side as well, but I want to know, like Sandra, as a young girl, because obviously when you get into the Marines, I think you don't have a choice. You have to get confident in speaking or they help you. But had you taken any journey prior to that with actually public speaking and just even in school?
Prior to my military experience?
Yeah, as a child, because, sometimes people, they're confident from 5 years of age and they do drama classes, and other times people are terrified and it takes, a few years to get confident speaking.
Great question, Roy. I did not, but however, I will be honest, I had the best example. My father had what I call sexy confidence, and sexy confidence is what I help female entrepreneurs cultivate, is what I help them harness. It's the ability to master yourself and stay calm during stressful challenges and situations. That's what sexy confidence is. Now, it was my father who exuded this sexy confidence. He, the way he behaved, he was an immigrant to this country, but he was fearless, Roy. So I had that example. Just to answer your question.
No, that's and because I've listened to another show I'd listened to a few shows that you were on, and I heard your dad was actually instrumental in actually you getting into the Marines, and was, in like everything that you've done, you've got so much from your father.
You're so sweet. Yes, Roy, exactly. He was that first prime example of what it meant to be assertive, what it meant to really harness the sexy confidence that we all have, and being authentically ourselves. And I believe this is so important because when you're authentically yourself, you become the best version of yourself. And it's a win-win because you serve other people and you will allow other people to be themselves.
Absolutely. And I think, it's not everybody kind of does it at a young age. Sometimes it takes us a lot longer, but once you do it and you realize by just, it's like you don't tiptoe either. You kind of say it as it is. People respect you for it, and you tend to attract the right people by being that way.
Well, and don't get me wrong, it's definitely this muscle that gets strengthened over time. So I wasn't necessarily confident to begin with. I've been scared the whole time. I just know how to summon the courage to face my fears. And it's one of the things that enabled me to endure 20 years in the Marine Corps. So it's definitely a process.
So you might let people know your journey to getting into the Marines and actually what you were doing. 20 years is a long time and actually in the Marines.
Yes. So, I was 18 years old. It was actually my father's recommendation. He was very patriotic. He came to this country and he always wanted to serve. And so here I am, I'm the eldest of three. And he said, Mija, you should join the military. It's something I always wanted to do. You can, travel, you can gain leadership skills. And that's all that I really needed, was for him to plant that little seed. I just kind of took it and ran with it. And I didn't think I would endure 20 years. Typically, when you join the military, especially, the Marine Corps, which is the toughest, military organization in the world, it's, especially as a female, it's not easy. It wasn't easy, but I was, thankfully, I had the core values, the principles, the skill sets to endure 20 years. So I just kept going, and I made it a career.
Oh, brilliant. And like, what I've noticed from people that I see in the military, they're very well organized. And I suppose even if I look at your background, how the bookshelves and everything, it's just like everything is perfect. And I see that how, like, I'm curious, what's the way that they're doing that? Is that a slow thing, or is it immediately how you have to be so organized and everything? Because it's not a bad thing, because I see fantastic business people that come from the military.
Thank you, Roy. What an amazing question. So where does our structure, our organization, this militant style way of thinking come from? I believe is what you're asking. As one of the jobs I had in the military, I was a drill instructor. So for 3 years, I trained over 500 women recruits. So when a woman joins the Marine Corps, they send her to boot camp. I was that drill instructor, that mean bitch, so to speak, that is, unleashing the madness. I mean, I was very tough because I knew that the tougher I am in training this woman, the better off she's going to be in a hostile environment. So you pour yourself into these women recruits, and in a platoon, you have anywhere between, 55, 65 women recruits that we have to train for about 3 months. But I bring this up, Roy, because that's that initial, initiation, so to speak, where we teach them how to make a perfect bed. Like the bed has to be, parts of the bed has to be 6 inches. There has to be a 45-degree angle. There's attention to detail in making her bed. So I share this because that's the beginning of teaching her strict obedience to orders and having attention to detail. So it's little things like that and many more that we teach, women recruits so they can survive in a hostile environment. But this is where it's initiated. I can go on and on, Roy, but what a great question.
I'm assuming with kind of the screaming, because I just see it from the television. Obviously, I've never been in the military yet, but I think that's kind of to prepare you as well, that you're not distracted if there is actually a situation that occurs that could be life or death.
Absolutely. There's so much more that goes into that. It's having her focus on something at, in that specific moment that needs to be perfected, in this case, as in the drill instructor's way. So if the bed wasn't made to my standards or Marine Corps standards, I would mess up that bed and have her do it over again until it was made, to our specification, so to speak. So yes, there's so much more. There's, her being present, her being intentional, her having attention to detail, and taking pride in something small as making her bed.
And like, to avoid the distraction, I'm just curious, do they actually do any meditation with you? Because if you're just totally focused on whether it's your boots or having the bed in proper order, you are totally focused. You're not thinking of, Facebook or whatever, anything else, or a partner or anything else. You're present in the zone, which is a form of meditation. But I'm just curious, do they actually teach meditation in the military as well?
We do not, but we do teach how to master yourself in a way in a stressful environment. So what's happening as she's making this bed? I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. Mind you, Roy, I have 65 women in a platoon, and they all have to make their bed, which we call them a rack here in the US, military rack. She's got to make that rack within like 30 seconds, and I'm counting down, and she better get it right. So there's a lot of stress involved that she's like, oh my goodness, I better get this right. And I'm helping her deal with stress. She doesn't know it at the moment, but I'm helping her deal with stress. And there's other things associated with that.
Oh, excellent. So your transition then, when you actually left, how did you get into the speaking and the coaching?
And I love these questions. So, as a leader in the Marine Corps, I picked up more responsibility. I was responsible for mentoring, coaching, so to speak, men and women. And I realized that I love this process of mentoring, of, really communicating the right words so they took action, right? Because in the military, it's crucial. And I realized leadership is caught. It's not taught. Leadership is caught. It's contagious. And the onus is on us as leaders to set that example. Whether it's the personal or the professional example, the onus is on us. So I fell in love with, becoming the best version of myself, because I knew men and women were looking at me 24/7. So I had to exemplify a Marine leader, not only in uniform, but also when I took off my uniform. And to further answer your question, Roy, I would speak in the military, but it wasn't until I was asked to speak at a women's conference in Miami, Florida, that the passion was reignited to speak, to empower, to inspire other women, men and women, because I coach men also. But it was in that women's event in Miami, Florida, that something was like reignited within me, and I just took it from there.
No, excellent. And there's different speakers, that some are kind of pure energetic and people go away energized but don't do nothing. Then there's others, they don't have the energy, but they've got good information. And I mean, I've seen you on stage from some of the videos that I've looked at, and it's like you have the energy, but you're actually looking that they actually do something about it, and that's based on obviously your career.
Yes, Roy. And that's the crucial piece for me, is because, as a speaker, as this high performance coach, it's my moral responsibility. It's a moral obligation, to serve my audience. It doesn't matter where I'm speaking. They came here and they're giving me their time, which is our most precious asset. The inspirational is fleeting, and I've realized I can definitely bring the energy. I got that going. However, for me, it's important that I divulge the secrets, the tactics, the tips that come Monday morning when that motivation is no longer there. How is this gentleman, how is this woman going to take action? Simple steps that, I've taught them, so to speak, so they can take action in their life and business. And for me, that's the most important thing, because we're servant leaders. As speakers, we're servant leaders. We're here to serve.
Brilliant. And you mentioned that your father emigrated. What country did he come from?
So I don't know if you could tell, Roy, but I'm Mexican American.
Yeah. Yeah, so the reason why, because I assume, but I mean, there's so many different South American countries. So, but basically, I know that you've spoke around the world, Dubai, but Mexico. But I presume there must have been a pride as well when you were actually speaking Mexico from, coming from the country that your father came from.
And that's just happened Yes, Roy. And that's just recently happened, especially after my father's passing. I just recently lost my dad. Um, and this ability to speak in Spanish, because, I'm also fluent, hablo español. So it's important to speak this language, that I'm Mexican American, and to speak it in a way that serves my audience. It's everything. So I love this question because, yes, and it was my father who inculcated this, his core value, which he said, never forget where you came from. Yes, we're in this country and I love this country, but you speak Spanish and you speak English, and never forget that. And it served me also, Roy, because growing up, I was here in America, and I used to think, gosh, my dad is so Mexican. I'm like, why do we always have to speak Spanish? It wasn't until I was in the Marine Corps, and we had the Salvadorian army at our Marine Corps base. They had asked me, they're like, Sandra, you speak Spanish, right? I said, absolutely. Can you greet the Salvadorian army, the generals that are coming on base? We need to give them a tour, and we need a Spanish speaker to convey exactly what we do here, in boot camp. I'm like, I would be honored. So it was in that moment, Roy, that I realized, wow, my father was spot on.
Beautiful, beautiful. And and I'm sorry for your passing your father, because I'd heard you talk about that on the show that I listened to. So yeah. Like, I know you spoke in Dubai as well, but so I'd like to know what you've learned from speaking in the different countries, but also going back to Mexico, because speaking in Spanish as well, like, you have to have differences in what you've kind of learned that perhaps you didn't expect.
I would say, what I learned I lived in Dubai for 4 years. That's how I had that extraordinary experience. And for all my Arab listeners that are watching, assalamu alaikum. I learned a little bit of Arabic, which is, I love meeting people all over the world. But going back to your question, Roy, what did I learn? I learned this: we all bleed the same. It doesn't matter what country we come from. We all have the same insecurities. We all have the same doubts. We're all human beings, and we all bleed the same. Having said that, the most important lesson I've learned is to be authentically myself, because in the process of being transparent, of being authentically myself, I'm going to attract the people that are supposed to be in my life and repel the wrong ones. And this is okay. We're not for everybody, and I've made peace with that. So the most important takeaway, I would say, is I've learned to be myself. And I'm proud of where I come, what I stand for. And that's just, one of the many things I share.
No, brilliant. So there's a few things that I want to touch on that I've heard you talk about, but commanding the room, what things can you touch on?
Yes. I love that. Well, I learned how to command the room when I was, picture this, an executive boardroom, so to speak. And there's like 12, 15 Marine Corps generals. As I walk into this room, I'm the only female, and I'm Latina at that. And you can smell testosterone in the room. So I realized in that moment, I could be very, very easily intimidated by these men, or I can be comfortable in my own skin and trust that I have the wealth of information I need, the professionalism I need to exude to chime in and give suggestions, and give the solutions they're seeking, because I also have feedback. I also have, constructive criticism. And so I started raising my hand and I started speaking up. So I learned in that moment how to be assertive and take command of any room, whether it's, giving a webinar presentation or speaking in a conference full of 200, 500 people. You learn to take command of any room when you realize radical self-acceptance, when you're comfortable in your own skin. And it comes as a result of you accepting yourself first and foremost. When you do that, other people will accept you.
Excellent. And with like the kind of craziness in the last 3 years, the world kind of for speaking went more virtual. So what kind of tips can you give people for that, and what did you learn yourself?
Through webinar presentations per
Yeah, or
se?
being Zoom calls, or if you were actually, I don't know, did you do any speaking engagements online? But yeah, or even now it seems to be hybrid as well, that some of the speakers don't need to be traveling, which does pros and cons for that. One is the energy when you're actually, at an event, but two, if you've got family, friends that you want to stay with, you don't have to be traveling because, you don't want to be living out of a suitcase either. But actually, the main thing is some people were very uncomfortable at the start doing virtual events.
Yes. So I can totally resonate with that, Roy, because I particularly, I love live events. I love live events because you can feel the audience. Are they paying attention? And I know it's my responsibility to capture their attention and give them the value. Give them the value they're there to, the value they seek. So making that transition into, oh my goodness, how do I jump on Zoom? How do I create a webinar presentation? How do I exude this energy I typically, exude in a real event? In the beginning, it's like anything else. It's like riding your bike. It's awkward, right? But I think for your viewers that are watching, everything's like that. Everything in life is practice. Having a baby, starting a business, speaking on stage, everything is practice. And I think if we allow ourselves, if we tell ourselves, you know what, every master was once a disaster, and I'm just practicing, my methodology with other people, and it's only going to get better with time. For practice is the self-discipline that everybody needs, whether it's a webinar, Zoom presentation, or speaking at a live event. But I know sometimes there's technical glitches that can happen. You're like, oh my goodness. That's where I believe sexy confidence comes in, and it's mastering yourself and staying calm during those stressful situations.
Excellent. And I suppose if we kind of touch on branding yourself as well, because like you talk about the sexy confidence, which is great, and you kind of seem to have a niche. I mean, you mentioned you have male, but I mean, I'd say primarily female. But by actually, I mean, you ooze the confidence yourself. I mean, I say it there, but also on the things that I've looked at. But by, I suppose, living yourself, you're actually teaching people as well that how you can do it, because they go, wow, just by looking at you.
Oh, thank you. And it's setting the example. And it's one of the main reasons why I focus on successful, high caliber entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, because it's not only the professional aspect, it's the personal. They're all interdependent. It's all you. So branding comes down to you. Are you setting that example on a personal aspect? Because when you give yourself that evidence that you're setting the example, on the personal aspect, then it's going to bleed into the professional, because now oh no, I practice what I preach. This is what I do, so now you're going to be able to do it on the professional, because you're not this imposter, you're not this fraud, you're practicing what you preach. So it's a practice It's self-discipline.
Oh, brilliant. And I'm curious, like with different speakers and coaches about the social media, because yeah, it's a kind of minefield. There's a billion and one of them now at the moment. So just kind of what you find has helped your career
Yeah, the branding, yes. What has helped my career,
with
Roy?
social media. Which ones like would you think help you?
Which social media platforms or I think, I did have like over 3,000 followers on Instagram. My account did get hacked, so I'm restarting my new account. I know, one of those things that just happens, and it's like, whatever, I can start a new account, and I've done just that. So I'm really active on Instagram, which, I'm at Coach Sandra Gonzalez, if the viewers are interested.
And just
And
on that, actually, what I've noticed is because sometimes you see people, and the fact that you're building it, you got hacked. But I see there's very good engagement, because sometimes you've people, because they can buy, they can have 100,000 whatever, and there's zero. You have less engagement that you've got a load of engagement, which means they're true followers.
yes, Roy, and exactly. So I practice what I preach. I will never buy followers, never. That's just not me. I want to earn everything in life. And this goes back to the sexy confidence my father taught me. He came to this country, he earned everything. And those values were inculcated, to me. And I practice those core values, those principles, where it's better to earn things in life, in business. And I'm okay. I would rather have 500 genuine followers, than 500,000 fake accounts. No, thank you. I want to earn everything. And, again, it's practicing what I preach. If this is something I help women do, is, when I convey to her, earn everything in life. The most beautiful things are earned, I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I'm setting that example. And it's the honest truth, Roy. The most beautiful things in life are truly earned.
And I think people have to get out of the instant gratification or I want, 5,000, 100,000. It's like, it's not about the number. It's about kind of the message that you're getting and how you're helping people. And once you kind of take out the numbers out of it, the mission becomes more important.
Absolutely. And same thing could be said for somebody that's listening right now. There's a woman that's listening at this moment. And if we've touched her heart, and this ability to inspire and empower her to take action in her life and business, well, then I've done my job. I've done my due diligence, and I'll continue. Even if it's one person that I'm serving, I'll continue to do it, because, that's what I'm here to do.
Excellent. And like a lot of people suffer with time management, and I know that's something that you kind of discuss as well. So you might kind of give us some tips on that.
Can we just stay here all day, Roy? Can we just... I love, being in the military. I worked sometimes when I was a drill instructor specifically, I worked between 80 to 120 hours a week. So I learned time management down to a T. And time management is everything. Time is our most precious asset. What do the most successful military leaders or entrepreneurs, or most successful entrepreneurs, have? What's their most precious asset? Time. So we all have 24 hours in a day, and it's how you use your time that will determine, this desired outcome that you want to achieve, that will determine whether you're moving the needle in your life and business. And I love time management because I practice what I preach. Going back to Instagram, I'll post every day. I make my bed. This goes back to me being in the military. I make my bed because it goes back to being intentional. I feel accomplished when I make my bed. So I show that with my clients and my viewers because it's self-discipline, in action, which creates a ripple effect. And this helps with time management. So because when you set the tone for the morning, you're going to set the tone for the day.
And I'd probably annoy you now with this because because I hear a lot of the military saying, make your bed in the morning. What I've learned is the bed bugs, let's call them, the mites, they thrive under the conditions of your body, sweat and everything. So if you make your bed, you're enclosing them. So what I do is I take all the blankets off and I open the windows and I make the bed later on in the day.
Every day?
Like, yeah, it's like take the quilts that you take them off, have the window open, that you're airing the bed, and then I make the bed in the evening.
Yeah, I do that once a week when I change out my linen.
Yeah, but I still change the linen once a week, but I do that daily just because it's something that I came across that that they thrive in that kind of environment. And so we touched about the stress in the military, but when you're talking to the women in business and they have high stressful kind of situations, what kind of advice would you be giving them?
Yes. So when, high caliber women or men entrepreneurs or your viewers that are watching, when they have high stress, again, it's so crucial to have this morning ritual. Now, there's a difference between having a ritual and having a routine, Roy, because a routine, we get up and we brush our teeth. That could be your daily routine, I hope, for most people, right? Now, a ritual is making your bed with intention. So when I make my bed, I'm grateful. I'm like, thank you, God. I have this bed. There's people.
And do you do it at 45 degrees and in 30 seconds? Yeah.
No, my bed is a lot more, no, my bed is a lot more appealing nowadays. It's the bed that I want to jump into at the end of the day, Roy. But going back to this ritual, right? It becomes a ritual when you have an intention behind it. So for example, again, I'm grateful. There's so many people waking up and they don't have a bed. Again, for the people in Ukraine, where was it, this earthquake that just hit in 30,000 people?
Turkey, yeah, there was in Turkey. And I think Syria as well got one. Yeah.
Syria, exactly. Yeah. We must pray for them. And it's in these moments that I'm grateful and thank you, God, I have a bed. It's these it's this attitude of gratitude that enables me to lubricate my mind and heart with peace. And I share that because this is what an entrepreneur needs to let go, of expectations, to let go of the stressors that are coming their way. It's incorporating a morning ritual really sets you, apart. It gives you this ability to be more mindful, more present, more productive.
And with your clients, then, are you advising them? Because sometimes, especially high performance entrepreneurs, whether male or female, a lot tend to put all their energy in the business and they fall down in either health or family or relationships. Are you actually kind of looking at the wheel of life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, what I share with them, it's about having equilibrium, and alignment is not perfect. Life is messy. And this is what actually makes life in business beautiful. It's supposed to be imperfect. It's supposed to be messy. So my recommendation is to find equilibrium. How do you do that? Well, you master yourself first with the things you do first thing every morning to lubricate your mind and heart with peace so you can have the mental bandwidth to now serve other people, to delegate authority, to scale your business.
Oh, excellent. And I see the books from behind, but I'm just curious, are you planning on writing a book yourself on your journey?
I love that you asked this question, Roy, because I'm actually going to Cabo San Lucas. It's a part of Mexico. Please come visit anytime. By the way, I have an Airbnb in Mazatlan, Mexico, another beautiful part of Mexico. But I'm going to Cabo San Lucas on Monday to start writing my book, Roy. It's funny that you bring this up. I've given myself, like, I'm going to go into a different, beautiful environment just so I can give myself that peace of mind, so I can have the mental bandwidth to write my book. Absolutely.
Brilliant. And I've actually heard from a few authors, they actually say, step away from your kind of typical environment. And that's when because you're going there with intention, and then you just get focused. And I mean, obviously that's incredible. So with the books that's behind you, has there been books that have kind of influenced you? What kind of stuff you like?
Oh my gosh. Don't you? I love books. I know you love books too. Books are everything. So, gosh, okay, so this one, typical retired Marine officer, right? This one, my favorite, Becoming Bulletproof. Have you read it, Roy?
I've heard of Bulletproof Coffee by Dave Asprey, but I haven't read that book, no.
Oh, I love this book because this woman, she's a special agent, right? She was a special agent here in the Secret Service. Evie Pompuris, I'm probably most likely butchering her last name, but what a beautiful book that truly embodies this warrior's mindset. And this is what I help entrepreneurs with, right? I help them develop this warrior's mindset, which is developing a growth mindset, because you have to be flexible, right? You have to learn how to master yourself in those challenging and difficult situations. And this book really conveys this bulletproof mindset that I learned in the military, that is also applicable to me now as an entrepreneur. So I just love the story and how she conveys her message in a very assertive and sexy way.
And
So
I see principles as well from Dalio, Ray Dalio. I have that one as well. I see that in your shelf there. That's actually very good for an entrepreneur, I believe, that book. It's there's a lot of things in that. But it's like, it must shock you as well that, I mean, obviously you're an avid reader as well as myself, but it shocks me the amount of people that don't read one book for a year. I read over 100. I'm just addicted. I just love reading. And it helps me as well with the different podcasts, because I'm able to discuss some of the topics on it, but just in general for health, for myself and everything. But you must have come across a lot of people after they leave school, they've never picked up a book again.
Which is unfortunate, Roy, and this is why I'm a strong advocate of helping people develop a warrior's mindset. It's like we have to think outside the box, especially for entrepreneurs. New levels, new devils. So how do we, face these internal enemies of self-doubt, fear, and uncertainty? How do we face these internal and external enemies? Well, we cultivate what I call a warrior's mindset, this bulletproof mindset, to really educate ourselves or become the best version of ourselves. So I was one of those people who never read, and it wasn't until I realized I really have to practice what I preach with the leaders that I'm leading, and I have to dive into a book. So it is for you and me, Roy, I would say it's a self-discipline that's become a high caliber habit that now it's a non-negotiable. We love nourishing our minds, right? And it's through books, because books have amazing answers. And for me, when I open up a book, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to learn from this person? And it's like a beautiful adventure, and for me, I'm old school. I take notes, I highlight with all different colors. So I love books, Roy.
There was a time I used to say, I don't want to damage the book, maybe, it'd look better. But then I thought, these are just for me. There's no value if you tried to resell them. And I never did resell a book. And it's just like when I look, and I don't know, because I reread very good books, but it's actually interesting that if you come back to a book maybe 5 years later, you'll actually pick up different things. I mean, I kind of look at stuff, if I've highlighted it, am I actually doing that? Because there's like knowing and actually doing. But then there's later you go, you totally missed something. And that's why I think it's actually highlighting stuff as well. It helps you zone in, but also that you can kind of spot things that you didn't cop previously.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every time we could listen to a podcast 3 times or 4 times, you're going to pick up on something new that the third time you might have recently learned. It's funny. It's one of the things that I share with my, female entrepreneurs. It's your reticular activating system. Sometimes it's like the red car, right? Like that once you drive off a lot with a red car, a brand new car, now you start seeing that red car everywhere. Well, the same thing can be said for going back to this material that you've read now for the third time. You pick up on different information because your reticular activating system has been activated in a way where you're like, oh, wait a minute, there it is, And books are just amazing because they really nourish your mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. And finally, with your coaching, then you might just kind of talk, who is your ideal kind of clients, and then the kind of onboard processing. Is there a kind of free intro call? What way you kind of do it?
Yes, great question, Roy. So I have found, that I wake up excited to coach this woman that I call a chingona. And chingona is a Spanish slang word for high caliber female entrepreneur. She's this successful, badass woman that's got an insatiable appetite for growth. So I love serving this woman because she's got the frequency, she's in alignment with the things that I value. So specifically, I love working with this woman. Now, what do I offer her? I offer like a free inner critic assessment. In this assessment, I give her a little bit more visibility on what might be holding her back, and it's through this assessment. Sometimes they're like, oh my goodness, Sandra, you're right, I didn't see that before. And I just give her value, because we're here to serve. And then if she's interested, we move on with another call where I, share my coaching or my upcoming, I have an empowerment retreat here in La Jolla, California. If you're interested, Roy, join us. Bienvenido, you're welcomed. But I walk her through this assessment, and then we jump on, the coaching call if she's interested in my services. But I also have free training. So for your viewers that are watching and still listening, thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Shukran. I offer free training. So if I may share.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have your permission. Thank you so much, Roy. They can get this free training at sexyconfidencetraining.com. They can go there. I offer a masterclass. In this masterclass, I offer 3 secrets for this high caliber entrepreneur so she can take command of any room she steps into and magnetize opportunities for impact and growth.
Excellent. So thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Sandra. So you might let people know, you've mentioned that and I'll include that, but what's the website, what other handles that you'd like to mention for the listeners?
Thank you, Roy. So my website is sandragonzalez.com, and that's with 2 Z's. And they can follow me on social media, Instagram, Coach Sandra Gonzalez, and I'm here to serve. I love personally getting DM'd. I normally, it's me responding. And like you said, thankfully I have followers that are very, active because I'm here to serve them. And it's been an incredible time being on your show. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Sandra. So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. And you'll find everything about me and my coaching on bio.link/podcaster. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. Until next week, take care.